Hey there, it's the first week of September 2025. That means it's time for the Cape Coral Real Estate Market Update video. I do one of these every single month. And if you're not familiar with this video, basically what I'm going to do here, this is kind of a longer form video. I'm really going to dive deep into the statistics and the facts and the figures of the Cape Coral real estate market. And we're really going to be focusing on numbers that were put up last month. So we're going to be talking about numbers that happened in August. I'm going to give you some sales data, some inventory data, things like that. And then we're going to start off by kind of giving you a broad overview of what the entire market looks like. And then we're really going to break those down into different categories. So we're going to be talking about off-water, non-waterfront single-family homes, which is the broadest category of real estate that we have here in the city of Cape Coral. And then we're going to talk about, of course, Gulf access homes. So waterfront homes on a Gulf access saltwater canal, which of course we're very, very well known for here in the city of Cape Coral. And then we're also going to talk about condos and townhomes. We're going to finish up then with some vacant lots, and then I'm going to give you some advice if maybe you're a current buyer in this Cape Coral real estate market, or some advice if you're maybe a seller in the current Cape Coral real estate market. A little tougher for sellers these days, but it's not an overcomable situation. We are selling some properties here in the city of Cape Coral, so make sure you stick around for that. If you're not familiar with who I am, my name is Dustin Guthrie. I'm a longtime resident of Southwest Florida and Cape Coral. I've been a full-time real estate broker here in Cape Coral for 20 years. It'll be 20 years just in a few months now, and I do a video like this every single month where we really look at the statistics of the Cape Coral real estate market, but these are in addition to the weekly videos that I put out where we just cover some really good, useful information. So especially if you're somebody that's looking at moving to the area, if you're moving to Cape Coral or moving to Fort Myers or something like that, I'm going to encourage you to hit the subscribe button so you can be around for these videos every single week. I just try to give you a lot of really great information. Sometimes we're covering things like, flood insurance or taxes like we did a couple of weeks ago. This past video was just on some really interesting average price Gulf access homes. We looked at 3 of those in this last week's video, but I'm going to encourage you to hit the subscribe button so you can be around for those every month. I just try to use these videos to kind of create some value for you, give you a lot of really great information, because I know if I can do that, then you probably will remember me when the time does come and you do need a realtor anywhere in Southwest Florida if you're buying or if you're selling a property here. And of course, my contact information is right there on the screen. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear about your specific situation and tell you a little bit about how I can help you out with that. So with all that out of the way, let's get into this month's market report. I always start off every single one of these reports by just telling you what the lowest and the highest sales were last month. So again, we're going to be talking about August. I'm going to give you a few different categories of the lowest and then highest sales that happened in the month of August 2025. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to start off with the lowest sales of the month of August 2025. I'm going to do a few different categories, and we'll start off with the lowest condo sale. So again, this is the lowest condo that sold in the entire month of August for the entire city of Cape Coral. It's this one right here, 815 Victoria Drive, Unit 108. That's in the Victoria Arms condo complex. It's over there by Cape Coral Parkway and Coronado, just in the southeast section of Cape Coral. This was a teeny tiny little first-story condo, just under 800 square foot, which is pretty small because it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So just under 800 square feet, built in 1984. And actually, this was a foreclosure. We haven't seen a lot of foreclosures in the city of Cape Coral. I think there was only a handful, maybe 30 or so, all of last year. So there's not a whole lot of foreclosure activity right now. But this one was a corporate-owned property. It was on the market for just under 3 months, listed at $97,500. It ended up selling the first week of August for $93,000. So we did get a little bit under that $100,000 mark this past month for the lowest condo sale. And it looked like this place needed a little bit of work, and the fees were a little bit high there. It was about $600 a month in this condo complex, which is maybe a little bit north of average these days. We're going to talk about that a little more when we get into the specific statistics for condos right now, but condos, it's been a little bit tougher market for condos because the fees have been a little bit higher for a variety of reasons, so we'll cover that here in just a little bit. But congrats to the buyers and the sellers on this sale of this condo. Anytime you're getting a condo, even a small one like this, for under $100,000, even if it needs a little bit of work, it's a pretty good deal even in today's market. So congrats to those folks. All right, let's jump over to the lowest single-family home that sold in the entire month of August for the whole city of Cape Coral. That's this one over in the southwest this time. 502 Southwest 25th Terrace. This one was listed for $200,000, and it's a little bitty single family home built in 1988. It is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, just over 1,100 square feet. But this one is a wood frame home. That's a little bit of an inferior construction method here versus the typical construction that we see, which is concrete block, usually with stucco siding on it. This was a wood frame home built in 1988, so makes sense that this one would be a little bit lower of a sale value, but listed at $200,000, sold for 4 days for $170,000. So this one probably needed a little more than just some TLC. I'm sure if some things came back during that inspection for them to take that big of a concession that quickly. Again, only on the market for 4 days and sold for $30,000 under list price. But hey, you got a single family home with a pool for that price, $170,000. You can't find too many pool homes. Can't find too many single-family homes in any case, in any condition, for under $200,000, unless they're just unfinished homes or something like that. So let alone a pool home. So in spite of it being a wood frame and being beat up a little bit on the inside, $170,000 is a good buy for this house. And congrats to the buyers on getting that really great deal. It's a dynamite location over there, just south of Veterans Parkway, east of Skyline Boulevard. So a great area. And $170,000 was the lowest single-family home sale last month. And let's finish up the lowest sales with the lowest Gulf access home that sold. And again, if you're not familiar, Cape Coral is very well known for our waterfront real estate, and specifically our Gulf access real estate. When I say Gulf access, all that means is a home is on a body of water, usually a canal, saltwater canal, with access out to the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America, whatever your preference is. I get beat up in the comments no matter what I call that body of water. So whatever you choose to call it, access out to the Gulf. And the lowest sale this past month was back over in the southeast, 1121 Southeast 23rd Terrace. This home was listed at $379,000. It was just under 1,600 square feet, built in 1986. Didn't have a pool, but it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath on a pretty decent Gulf access canal, decent speed out to open, or decent short little trip out to open water there. And this one had a boat lift with a dock on it. Needs some updates, but it looked like to be in pretty decent shape. It didn't have a pool. But $350,000 is what this home sold for in the first week of August. And gosh, anytime you're getting these Gulf access homes, no matter what the condition, once they get under that $400,000 mark, they generally sell fairly quickly. And this one didn't look to be in too terrible of a condition. It definitely needed some updates, but it had, it had a new roof, had a new AC, new garage door, new water heater, washer and dryer was only a couple years old. So there was a lot of newer elements to this house, and $350,000 was a great price. So congrats to the buyers and the sellers on the lowest Gulf access home that sold in the month of August 2025. All right, let's get over to the fun ones. These are the highest sales that occurred in the month of August for the entire city of Cape Coral. All right, so let's start off with the highest condo sale of the month of August 2025. Condos, we generally sell a lot more condos in the first and second quarter of the year versus the third and fourth quarter. So this is a really slow time of year for condos. It's kind of a slow time of year for Gulf access homes. They're both some categories that generally experience a lot more activity in the winter and spring. As you can imagine, we have 30% more folks down here during those times of year, and so the buying activity goes up, and this is condos and Gulf access homes are a favored category for our snowbirds. But let's look at the highest condo sale. It was this one right here, 1713 Beach Parkway, Unit 301. This was actually a property that sold off the market. This was just input, and that's why we don't have any photos of the interior of this unit. It sold off market for $475,000 in the first week of August. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, just over 1,600 square feet, had a deeded direct Gulf access boat dock with a lift in it, and it also had a 1-car garage. And actually, I've got a condo that's very, very similar to this listed right on the other side of the canal of this property. So great area over there on Beach Parkway, and $475,000 is a pretty low price to be the highest condo sale of the month. Again, our condos aren't, there's not a tremendous amount of activity in the summer for the condos like that, but usually we see a few sales that are a little bit 500,000-600,000, maybe a little more. Occasionally we get over $1 million, usually over there in Tarpon Point. So 475,000 was the highest condo sale for this direct Gulf access condo. So congrats to the buyers and the sellers on that beautiful condo purchase. All right, let's do, before we get into the highest overall sale, let's look at the highest non-waterfront home that sold last month. So this is a single family home, not on a Gulf access canal, not on a freshwater canal, it's just off water. It's this one right here, 1108 Southwest 24th Street. This is right in between Skyline Boulevard and Chiquita Boulevard, just north of Veterans Parkway. It was on a triple lot, and this is a brand new custom home, again, on that triple lot. When I say triple lot, that just means basically a third of an acre. It's, you know, an average lot here is a double lot, so when you're talking a triple lot, it's 50% larger. And they probably needed every bit of that space for this house, because this was 4,831 square feet, all on one floor. Brand new, again, built in 2025. 6 bedrooms, 5.5 baths. Just a beautiful custom home on that big lot there. It had incredible updates in it. Of course, the extra garage space, had that big RV garage there, just a ton of top shelf finishes in this beautiful home. Had a theater room in there, huge outdoor space with a massive outdoor kitchen. Just an incredible kitchen inside as well. So congrats to the buyers and the sellers on this one. And I guess I'll tell you what the price was. It was listed at $1.999 million, which is a high. $2 million is a pretty high price for an off-water home in the city of Cape Coral. But this ended up selling in about 76 days for $1.3 million. It's really just tough to price a home like this. It makes sense that this would be listed at close to $2 million and then end up selling at $1.3 million, because you don't have a lot of sales like this, so you kind of have no idea what that market looks like, and you got to have some people come through there and start to negotiate. So it makes sense that this final sale price was a fair amount less than that $1.999 million list price. But congrats to the buyers and the sellers on this beautiful house. $1.3 million was the highest non-waterfront home sale of the month of August 2025. All right, let's do the fun one. Highest overall sale. This is, I don't think we've had one single month since I've been doing this in the last 2 years where it hasn't been a Gulf access single family home. And this one not only was Gulf access, it was right on the water, on the river. So it had incredible big views. But this one is at 546 Coral Drive. It's down there in the Yacht Club neighborhood, again, right on the river. Just a beautiful property. It's not brand new. It was built in 2012, but it's been completely redone on the inside. A ton of modern finishes. Again, a ton of really high-end finishes there. And this was listed at $3.6 million. It was on the market for just under 3 months and ended up selling at $3 million there. Again, the first week of August. A lot of activity that first week of August. But again, this one was built in 2012. Just over 4,600 square feet, 4 bedrooms plus an office, and 4 1/2 bathrooms, just with a ton of incredible modern updates there, and of course the enormous riverfront views there. This one also had an amazing kitchen, both inside and outside. There was a tremendous outdoor kitchen as well as inside. But congrats to the buyers and the sellers on this beautiful property. The outdoor spaces were just phenomenal there. Had 2 boat lifts. One was a 40,000-pound boat lift, and one for a 10,000-pound. One was a 10,000-pound lift. So you've got your inshore boat and your offshore boat that you can have right there behind your house. So congrats to the buyers and the sellers. This is an incredible property. And we did hit the $3 million mark this month. The last few months we haven't reached quite that $3 million. But we did this past month in August. And that wraps up the highest sales of the month of August for the entire city of Cape Coral. Now we're going to start to get into the statistics. I always start off with just the broader overall statistics, and then we start to break things down into different categories. So let's look at the entire market, and then we'll start to get a little more granular on it. Okay, so starting off with the entire market stats, this is the entire residential market stats. So this includes basically everything that's a single family home, a condo, a townhome. We're not including duplexes or triplexes, and we're not including vacant lots. But let's start off with the number of sales. The total number of sales in the residential Cape Coral real estate market last month was 475. That was pretty much on par with what it was in July. It was 478 in July. And take a look, here's the 2-year graph. As you can see, I mean, obviously our market is very seasonal, so we have a lot more activity in the first 6 months of the year, and then activity kind of drops off in the summer and later months of the year. So it's to be anticipated, although we've had a somewhat strong summer so far, at least comparatively. But if you look at the last couple of years, again, August of this year, 475 sales. If you go back to August of 2024, 516, so we had a little more activity last year, and then 504 in August of 2023, 2 years ago. So we are not keeping pace with where we were the last couple of years, but we're really not too far off the pace that we had last year. If you look at the first 8 months of the year, so January through August, this year so far we've sold 3,871 residential properties, and the first 8 months of 2024 we had sold 4,146 properties. So we're just about 275 properties off pace of last year. That represents just a overall buyer demand decline of about 6.6%. So that's not tremendously high. We're still selling quite a few homes out there. The inventory has been high, but it has been coming down. We're going to get into that here in a second. But 475 sales was the total residential real estate market last month. And let's look at the median price. Obviously, everybody's concerned about the prices here. And as for those 475 sales, the median price last month was $359,000. And if you can't quite remember back to statistics class, I always use the median price instead of the average. The median basically says you line up all of the residential sales from starting with that little condo that sold at $93,000 and line them up in order all the way up to the one that sold for $3 million on the river, and the one directly in the middle is the median. And that gives you kind of an indication where, obviously half of the homes that sold, half the properties that sold were more expensive than that, and half were less expensive. It gives you kind of a rough idea of what the middle of the road property looks like right now in Cape Coral. But $359,000 was the median price. It's actually up $9,000 from July's number. July was down at $350,000. But looking at this 2-year graph, 12 months ago we were at $384,000 for a median price. And that represents about a $25,000 decrease in median price, about 6.5%. So the total market has corrected in the last 12 months about 6.5% in the last year. Now, if you go back 2 years ago, the median price in August of 2023 was $390,000. So that represents about a $31,000 correction since in the last 2 years, in the last 24 months. That's about an 8% reduction. So, it's in spite of all the bad press and everything like that, we have been correcting and prices have been going down, but they've been going down relatively slowly, and that's why it's one of the reasons I think this is just kind of a healthy correction. We got a little bit hot and heavy there a while after the pandemic, and pricing was kind of a little bit screwed up, and the inventory was super low, and we kind of needed that reset to kind of flip the other direction and get us back to a little more equilibrium. So it's good that we are correcting, and it's good that we are not correcting in one big massive slide. It's been kind of a gradual decline, and I think that's the sign of a healthy real estate market. So let's talk about the inventory, because the inventory has been the story. It's been on everybody's mind this entire year for the Cape Coral residential real estate market, and we certainly had a pretty high set of numbers in terms of inventory earlier this year. But guess what? The inventory has come down dramatically since that high point. We kind of peaked out in February of this year, and it's come down considerably. So take a look at this 2-year graph. August of 2025. Now, I should mention that these numbers represent any residential property that had an active listing status at some point during the month of August. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this many properties are actively on the market right now, because some of them have sold, some of them came off the market, some of them expired, some of them did this and that and the other. But the number of total active listings at one point or another during last month was 3,655. And if you look back in February, the high point on this chart was February of this year. We kind of rose up very, very quickly over the course of 2 years, and we peaked out in February of this year, and the number was 4,973. So just in the, what is that, March, April, May, June, July, August, 6 months. Just in the past 6 months, we've taken 1,318 listings off the market. That represents a decline in inventory of about 26.5% in just 6 months. Now, the caveat to that is, you know, again, we're a very we're a very seasonal market, and so we naturally see some of the inventory kind of come off the market during the slower summer and fall months, and then we see it kind of go back up during our busy season as we get into the first of the year. And I fully expect wherever we end up later this year, that inventory number will kind of pop back up a little bit. But this is a pretty dramatic decline in overall inventory, and I think it's a really, really good sign for our real estate market. And the way it looks right now, we'll definitely see an incline as we get into the busier season. But I don't think, at least as it sits right now, I don't think we're going to hit fresh highs like we did earlier this year. And actually, if you look back 12 months ago on this chart, 3,655 is what the inventory was here in the month of August. In the month of August of 2024, it was 3,706. So we're about 1.4% under where we were this time last year, and this is the first month of this year where our inventory has been lower now than it was 12 months ago. So we've made significant amount of progress. Now, if you look back in 2023, in August 2023, there was only 3,156 properties on the market. So we're still up about 15.8%, or about 499 properties from where we were 2 years ago. So we've got a little bit extra work to do, but man, we've made some really, really strong progress on the inventory front, and I think that's a really, really great sign for our overall real estate market, especially as we're getting into what hopefully will amount to some lower mortgage interest rates and maybe a little bit busier buying season this next year. So great news on the inventory front. We've got a little bit more work to do, but that kind of wraps up everything for the overall residential real estate market. Let's start to dive into these different categories, and I always start off with the biggest category that we have here, which is the off-water single-family home market. So let's get into those next. All right, so off-water single-family homes, this is pretty self-explanatory. It's any single-family home that's not on a body of water, not on a Gulf access canal, not on a freshwater canal, not on a lake, just in everything that's not on the water that is a single-family home. We'll keep the same sort of format, and let's start off with the total number of sales for the month. And again, we're talking about August 2025. Here's the 2-year chart. Total number of sales in this category last month was 303. That's down ever so slightly from the month of July, where we had 314 of these sales. And, you know, like the overall residential market, we're just a little bit softer this year in terms of the amount of properties that we're selling versus the last couple of years. If you go back to August of 2024, the number of properties that we sold in that month was 365. If you go back to 2023 in August, that number was 372. But let's look at the first 8 months of the year so far in 2025. So far, the first 8 months, we've sold 2,435 of these properties. If we look at the first 8 months of last year in 2024, by the end of August last year, we had sold 2,705 properties. So we're just shy of last year's pace by about 270 homes. That represents about a 10% decrease in overall buyer demand this year versus last year. So we're still selling a healthy number of properties, but we're off the pace that we set last year. And you know, just for fun, if you want to look at the breakdown of these properties north of Pine Island Road kind of bisects our city in half, north and south, and more or less the northeast and northwest addresses are above Pine Island Road. The southwest, southeast addresses are south of Pine Island Road. So if we broke that down, the number of homes we sold in the northern areas of the city, north of Pine Island Road, was 165. So about 55% of the sales were north of Pine Island Road, and 138 or 45% were south of Pine Island Road. So We get a little bit more market share going up in the northern regions. That's generally where we're seeing maybe a little bit less expensive home because a lot of those are still on well and septic systems. All of the properties in the southeast and the southwest have central water and sewer, and as such, those properties are usually a little more expensive, although the southeast and the southwest, generally speaking, has a bit older properties versus the northeast and the northwest. That's a more recent development, has been up in those areas. But let's jump over to the median price for this category. Median price for these off-water single-family homes last month was $340,000. And again, that's up a little bit from July. July's number was $335,000, so we're about $5,000 more this past month. Now that's going to fluctuate a little bit, and we're probably still going to hover around this, low to mid 300s mark for the rest of the year. We'll have to see, but $340,000 when you take that compared to August of 2024, that number is $367,500. So we're down about $27,500 on average from this time last year. That represents a correction of about 7.5% just in the last 12 months. If you take this chart back all the way 2 years ago to August of 2023, that number was 370. So we didn't see big price fluctuations from 2023 to 2024. We've seen most of the correction happen in the last 12 months in this category. The 2-year correction has been 8.1% or 30,000, and 27,500 of that has been in the last 12 months. So again, kind of a gradual correction. We haven't seen big drop-offs or anything like that. Just like we saw in the broader overall residential real estate market, it's been kind of a slow correction over the course of the last couple years or so. If you break this down again from those sales that happened north of Pine Island Road versus south of Pine Island Road, the homes that were north of Pine Island Road had a median price of $335,000. That's why I say those properties are usually a little bit less expensive, even though many may be a little bit newer than the southeast and southwest homes, but a lot of them are on well and septic systems, so they're naturally going to be a little bit less expensive. North of Pine Island Road, the median price was $335,000. South of Pine Island Road, in those areas that have central water and sewer, that median price ticks up to $349,000 in terms of the median. So that's the median price for this category. Let's finish off with the inventory. Same story here that we saw in the overall market. Take a look at this 2-year graph right here. So again, these numbers are the number of total listings that had an active status at some point during the month. It doesn't mean that there are this many properties on the market right now. It just means there were this many properties at one point or another during the month of August, and that number for last month is 2,055. And that's down considerably from July's number of 2,246. But again, look at this big steep decline that we had since we kind of peaked out in February of this year. In February, the number was 2,729 properties on the market back in February. And we've taken 674 properties off the market in one way or the other. Either they've sold, the sellers finally had enough and said, let's just pull it off the market. Or what have you. Maybe they became rentals, things like that. But that represents a 24.7% decrease in overall inventory for this category just since February, in the last 6 months. Now, if you go back again 12 months ago to August of 2024, the inventory back then in this category was 2,145. So once again, this is the first month where we have less of an inventory now than we did 12 months ago. This is the first time that it's happened all year long. We've consistently been higher this year versus last year until this point right now. So we've got 4.2% less inventory on the market in this category right now than we did in August of 2024. It's about 90 fewer properties. But of course, if you take it back 2 years ago, that's when the inventory was still kind of a little bit artificially low as we were coming out of the pandemic. But nevertheless, August of 2023's number, 1,920 properties on the market. So we're up about 7% from 2 years ago, but man, have we made a lot of progress. And again, this category, like all the other categories, we'll see some level of increase in inventory as we get into the busier season once we hit January 1st or something. From December to January is usually a fairly good-sized jump, and January to February there's a little bit more of a jump. But as it sits right now, just because we've taken this much inventory off the market, I don't anticipate there don't anticipate we're going to hit brand new highs in 2026 in terms of inventory. It really seems like we are on the backside of this market cycle in terms of the inventory. But let's look at the inventory breakdown north of Pine Island Road versus south of Pine Island Road. North of Pine Island Road, about 57.7% of the market was north of Pine Island Road. So 1,186 properties on the market up there. South of Pine Island Road, 869, about 42.3%. But that's going to do it for the off-water single-family home market. Let's jump over to everybody's favorite category. That's the Gulf access homes. Let's look at those next. All right, so Gulf access homes in the city of Cape Coral. I think I mentioned this already, but Gulf access homes along with condos are the two categories that are really a lot more active in the winter and spring months, and then not as active in the summer and fall months. So it makes sense that our number of sales have kind of fallen off in the summer as they do every year. But let's take a look at the number of sales for Gulf access homes in the city of Cape Coral. Here's the 2-year graph. We sold 65 Gulf access homes last month in the month of August. That's down ever so slightly from July's number of 71. And actually 71 and 65 are a little bit higher than average for the later summer months, and at least in the grand scheme of the last few years. So 65 sales last month. Last August, in August of 2024, there were 70, but in August of 2023, there were only 48 sales of Gulf access homes. So just to kind of give you a comparison, an idea, that the high point this year so far was May. We sold 103 Gulf access homes in May of this year, and the high point actually last year was 110 in that same month, May of 2024. So it can pretty much double in those spring months. But nevertheless, if we look at the first 8 months of the year so far in 2025, we've sold 607 Gulf access homes so far in 2025. And if you look at the first 8 months last year in 2024, by this time we had sold 656 properties. So we're down about 49 off the pace of where we were last year. That represents a decrease in overall buyer demand of about 7.5%. So again, not terribly off the pace that we were last year for this category, as well as a lot of the other categories. If you want to break this down further into the 3 quadrants that do have Gulf access homes, there's the Southeast, the Southwest, and the Northwest. There are no Gulf access homes in the Northeast. So if you're seeing a canal property up there, it's probably priced pretty attractively, at least compared to Gulf access homes, but you're seeing a freshwater canal home, not a Gulf access home in the Northeast. But the Southeast represented about 40% of the sales last month for this category. 26 homes sold in the Southeast, 28 homes, or about 43%, sold in the Southwest. And the Northwest, just 17% of the sales, 11. There was only 11 Gulf access homes that sold in August in the Northwest section of Cape Coral, at least for Gulf access homes. But let's jump over to the median price for Gulf access homes for the month of August in the entire city of Cape Coral. Median price, as you can kind of imagine, because we only have a sample size of 65, or in some cases 40 or 50 homes in any given month, the median price can jump around quite a bit. Maybe you have one month where you're selling a few more homes in an upper end area of the Southwest, and so that value is a little bit higher one month, and the next month you're selling a few more maybe older homes, smaller homes in the Southeast, and so that median price can go down. So it fluctuates a lot, but if you look at this 2-year graph, the overall kind of patterns, you can kind of read between the lines here and see this. But the median price for those 65 sales last month was $650,000. That's down from $658,000 in the month of July, just $8,000 shy of that. And like I said, you can see how it kind of bounces around here a little bit. But if you look at back in August of 2024, we actually had, that's kind of the spike that you see in the middle of that graph right there. The median price had gone up to $776,250. So if you just take that and compare it to the $650 from this last month, it's a reduction of $126,250, or about 16.3%. Now, I don't think that represents the reality. I think that was kind of an abnormally high month there, and so you kind of have to read between the lines and average it out. If you look at the 2-year, going back to August 2023, the median price back then was $765,000, so it was actually less than it was in August of 2024. So it represents a 2-year decrease of about $115,000 or 15%. I think, again, you have to kind of read between the lines here. I think if you averaged a lot of these months out over the course of the last 2 years, I think we're looking somewhere around a 15 or 18% correction in the last 24 months. I think 10 of that is probably within the last 12 months. So you're a solid, it's a solid 120,000 or so, maybe $125,000 decrease in the overall averaged out median price in the last couple of years. So the same property that was sold 2 years ago can expect to sell for about $125,000 less this year. But let's break these down also by the three quadrants of Gulf Access homes. So of those properties that sold in the Southeast, the median price was only $567,500. And I think that really makes sense because, as if you're a watcher of this channel, you've probably heard me say this before, but the Southeast area of Cape Coral was really the first area to start being developed back in the late 50s, early 60s, and as a result, the development has kind of spread out from the Southeast. So it's natural that we see a lot more older homes in the Southeast, particularly in the Gulf Access neighborhoods. These properties are built in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and we really don't see as many newer properties in that quadrant. So as a result, it doesn't mean necessarily that the Gulf Access the location is inferior to, let's say, the Northwest or the Southwest. It just means the properties are usually a little bit older, and as such, the property values are a little bit less. Because if you jump over to the Northwest, the median price for those sales of the Northwest properties, that was $735,000. So you're talking almost $200,000 more than the median price of the Southeast. And I think that completely has to do with the fact that there are a lot newer properties in the Southwest. A lot of the development in the Southwest happened since the 1990s and certainly since the 2000s. And then if you look at just those, there was only 11 properties that sold into the Northwest, but the Northwest is definitely the newest area of the three areas. And those 11 properties that sold in the Northwest, the median price of those was $899,000. So again, I don't think that the Northwest location-wise, on a strict, Gulf Access location-wise, I don't think the Northwest is superior to the Southwest, let's say. But most of the homes in the Northwest that are selling are maybe 3, 4, 5 years old, whereas the Southwest homes might be 20 years old, and then you go into the Southeast, and those homes can be 30, 40, 50 years old. So I think that has everything to do with the discrepancy in those values there. But overall, $650,000 was the median price for the total city last month for Gulf Access homes. Let's look over at the inventory. And again, just like the number of sales goes down in the later months of the year, we see a lot of these properties be taken off the market. These sellers are aware that there's not a whole lot of sales activities happening for Gulf Access homes in the later summer and fall months, so they just take them off the market, and with the intention of putting them back on when we get to the first and second quarter of the following year. So take a look at this inventory. Again, these numbers are any property that had an active status at some point during the month gets counted towards these numbers. So last month's number for August was 724 Gulf Access homes on the market at some point. Doesn't mean that there were 724. I think there was, in fact, I think there was like high 600s, if I recall correctly, the last time I looked in terms of the number that were actually on the market right now. But 724 was this number last month. That's down from 805 from July. And again, we peaked out in this category in April. So the overall market kind of peaked out in February. This particular category, we saw the most properties on the market in April. And there was almost 1,100 properties, 1,091 properties on the market at some point in the month of April. And with 724 being this past month's number, that means we're down 367 or 33.6% in just 4 months. We've taken over 33.5% of the inventory of Gulf Access homes off the market in just the last 4 months. So that's an incredible amount of progress. We needed that to happen. Again, I fully expect some of that to come back on the market as we get into January, February. Hopefully it won't be a big spike like we saw this last year. Everything that I'm seeing indicates that we're not going to see as big of a spike. I don't think we're going to hit those fresh highs that we hit earlier this year in 2026. We'll just have to see. I'll tell you every single month on this report, so make sure you're tuned in and you're subscribed. But I think the worst part of the inventory issue that we've had here in Southwest Florida is behind us. But just to take this into some further context, if we go back to August of 2024, there were 720 properties on the market. So we've got 4 more properties on the market in August of 25 versus August of 24. And of course, if you go back 2 years ago to August of 2023, there were only 565. So we're still up about 159 properties, or 28.1% from this time 2 years ago. So we got some more progress that we need to make in the Gulf Access home market, but I think this is about as good as we could have hoped for in terms of the progress that we've made so far. We needed a lot of this inventory, particularly the overpriced inventory, to kind of come off the market, and I think a lot of that has, and that's why we've seen over 33.6% reduction in inventory in just the last 4 months. That's a tremendous amount of progress. But again, if we want to break it up into the quadrants, the Southeast, there was 289 properties on the market in the Southeast. That represents about 40% of the market. 42% of the market was in the Southwest, 304 Gulf Access homes, and 18% of the market was the Northwest. 131 Gulf Access homes on the market in the Northwest. And that kind of wraps it up for Gulf Access homes. I'll just kind of briefly mention freshwater homes because I know people are interested in that. We do have a tremendous number of freshwater canal properties. Only difference between those and the Gulf Access properties is obviously it's freshwater. It's a closed system. You can't get out to the open water from these freshwater systems, but they've got a lot of nice lakes and things like that. You can go fishing, kayaking, you can put a pontoon boat back in there, jet skiing. It's a lot of fun to be on the freshwater canals, and they're quite a bit less expensive than the Gulf Access canals, as you might imagine. So 69 homes on freshwater canals sold last month at a median price of $400,000. So when you're talking about a median price for a Gulf Access home of $650,000, median price for a freshwater home is $250,000 less than that. So you can be on the water. You can't get out to open water, but you can be on the water and have a good time playing around in those freshwater canal and lake systems, and you're $250,000 less on average. But that wraps up everything with Gulf Access and freshwater properties. Let's jump over to condos. Condos are they've been kind of taking it on the chin this past 12 or 18 months. So let's get into those numbers. All right, condos and townhomes. Just like Gulf Access homes, condos, we don't see a lot of sales activity in the later months of the year, in the summer and the fall. This is traditionally something where you see most of the activity happen in the first and second quarters. The first 6 months of the year is the vast majority of our condo sales. So let's get into the numbers, and I'm including everything that's basically not a single family home or multifamily. This is condos, townhomes, coach homes, all that kind of stuff. So let's take a look at the number of sales that we saw last month. We had 38 condos and townhomes sell last month in the month of August. That's down just 1 from July's number of 39. And as you can see here on this graph, I mean, it definitely kind of spikes in the spring season when our snowbirds are down here. Population again increases by about 30% or so during the winter and spring months. So as you can imagine, this category is a favorite by snowbirds, folks that are looking for a second home, things like that. So they tend to buy in those winter and spring months. But 38 last month, high point this year was 58. Hasn't been a really great year for condos. The condo demand has been down. I think there's several reasons for that. The majority of the reasons have to do with the increase in association fees. Especially in the wake of Hurricane Ian, we saw, of course, insurance rates went up, and so a lot of those associations, they have association policies, both windstorm coverage and flood coverage for the building itself usually, and as such, you got to charge more for the monthly association fees. But in addition to that, there's been some new rules in place, especially for condos that are 3 stories and above, where they've got to, by law now, set some reserves aside for structural inspections every 10 years for buildings once they hit 30 years old. And then also they have to have money set aside for structural repairs if those inspections turn up something is wrong with the structure of the building. The reason for that is, of course, a few years ago we had that terrible collapse of a high-rise condo building over in Surfside, Florida, that killed many people. And so the state put those laws in place to kind of protect those folks and make sure that if there is a structural issue going on, it's found and then taken care of so we don't have another tragedy like that. So it's definitely a worthwhile law that was put in place, but as a result, it's putting some upward pressure on the association fees, either monthly or quarterly, and that's why we're seeing the demand for condos kind of dip down a little bit. But overall, if you look back in August of 2024, we only sold 31 condos, so we're doing better than last year at this time, and there was only 31 condos that sold in August of 2023 too, so we've had a little bit stronger last couple of months than the previous 2 years. But if you look at the first 8 months of the year so far in 2025, we've sold 350 condos. If you look back in 2024, at this point, the first 8 months of 2024, we had sold 364 condos. So we're only down about 3.8% in terms of the condo demand. But again, the condo demand wasn't really that great last year either. We're just about 14 units shy of the pace that we set last year. Let's look at the median price for these condos. Median price was down last month. Again, we're only talking about 38 sales, so just like the Gulf Access homes, these median prices month to month can kind of bounce around tremendously. But you can kind of see, it's written on the wall here on this graph. You can see what the overall trend is for condo prices right now. And we set a fresh low, at least for the last 2 years. $186,000 was the median price of those 38 sales last month. That's the first time we've gotten under $200,000. It's the first time we've gotten under $215,000, which is the previous low, and that was the previous month in July of this year. So if you just take that $186,000 value, if you look at where we were 12 months ago, in August of 2024, the median price was $274,900, almost $275,000. So we're down about almost $89,000 from 12 months ago. That represents about a 32.3% decrease just on the surface values there. Now, again, you're going to have to read between the lines and average these numbers out a little bit, and I'll do that here in just a second. If you look 2 years ago, the median price in August of 2023, $269,500. So we're still down $83,500, or about 31% from that number 2 years ago. But again, I think if you kind of averaged all of these out in the last 2 years, I definitely think that we are down every bit of 25% overall, and for the condo market. And it's just been the roughest category of all of the residential real estate categories that we have here in the city of Cape Coral. And again, I think it's just because of those rising fees that we're seeing in some of these buildings. The condo demand has not been good. And also with those rising fees, a lot of these sellers are older folks. Maybe they're on fixed incomes. So that represents a financial hardship if those fees double, and some of them did from 2020, really 2023 to 2024 was the big jump. They've kind of settled down now, but you talk about your fees going from $350 to $600 a month, and you're on a fixed income with Social Security or something like that, and now you can no longer afford that condo. That makes you a forced seller, and to couple that insult to injury, the demand is really, really low, so then the only thing you can do is reduce that price to get that condo sold, and that's what people are doing. So we've got to kind of work our way through the number of forced sellers that we have in this real estate market. And I think, we'll start to flatten off on these price reductions, but I'm sure as we get into the later months, I would be very, very surprised if we stuck around that $186,000. My guess is we'll pop back up to around $200,000, maybe low 200s. But nevertheless, I think we've corrected every bit of 25% over the course of the last 2 years. And really, the majority of that has been in the last 12 months. So condos are in rough shape. It remains to be seen how far down we're going to go with that. Again, we're going to have to look at the inventory. Want to mention really quick, 8 of those 38 sales were Gulf Access condos. We have a lot of Gulf Access condos in the city of Cape Coral, and those sales were actually pretty high. The median right there for those 8 sales was $347,500. So if you're on the water, you're doing a little bit better than average here. Obviously, the majority of those 38 sales last month were off-water condos or non-Gulf Access condos, and that's why that value was probably a little bit lower. But I think condos really represent an opportunity right now, particularly if you're a first-time home buyer. Maybe you're in your low mid-20s or something like that, and you're trying to get into this real estate market, but maybe you're priced out of the single-family home market. You really ought to start looking at these condos because there's some really great deals to be had out there. And in spite of the fees being a little bit higher, even if you bought a single family home, your insurance is probably going to be a little bit higher and anyway. And so these fees, even though they're a little bit higher than they were 2 or 3 years ago, when you take into consideration that most of them cover a lot of your insurance, the structural insurance at least, and water and sewer, water and sewer bill for a single family home is every bit of $110 a month. So start backing some of these costs off, and really $600 a month or $500 or $400, whatever it is, starts to make a little more sense, and you can get into this real estate market for under $200,000 and have a really nice place here in the city of Cape Coral. So it's definitely something to think about, and I've been kind of preaching that for several months now. I think the opportunities lie in some of these condos right now, but let's look at the inventory. Again, these numbers that we're talking about, these are the total number of active listings that were on the market at some point during the month. So last month, in the entire month of August, at some point or another, we had a total of 431 properties on the market. Some of those sold, some of them came off the market, some of them expired. But there was 431 last month. That's down from 452 in July. And we peaked out in this category in March. There was 572 condos on the market in March at some point. So we've taken 141 condos off the market. That represents about a 24.7% reduction in inventory just since March. What is that? It's 5 months basically. And if you look back, a year ago, there was 427 properties on the market. So there's only 4 more properties on the market this year versus this time last year. It's less than 1%. So we're making some progress. We got some more progress to make. If you go back 2 years ago to August of 2023, there was 375. So we're still up 15% from where we were 2 years ago. So we got some more work to do on getting some more inventory off the market, but we've made some really, really good progress, and hopefully a lot of this inventory stays off the market. We will tick back up a little bit, as it always does, no matter what the market conditions are as we get into January and February. Excuse me. But hopefully, we're not going to see a big spike again, and we've put the bulk of our inventory issues behind us, and we're on the downslope of this current market cycle. I think that we are, and just tune in here every month, because I'll keep you updated on what condos are doing. But that's the story with condos and townhomes. Let's jump over to vacant lots, and then I'll go ahead and give you my advice for buyers and advice for current sellers in this real estate market. All right, well, it feels like I'm going pretty long, so I'm going to kind of blast through the vacant lots, but we're going to mainly focusing on off-water vacant lots, vacant residential lots. So these are lots that are not on a body of water. Most of these are in the northeast and the northwest section of Cape Coral, just because that's where the remaining vacant lots, the majority of them, are still. But let's look at the number of sales. Number of sales have been going down for 2 years now. Take a look at this graph. Boy, the demand for lots have been going down fairly rapidly here in the last 2 years. We only sold 50 lots in the entire city of Cape Coral last month in August. That's down from 60 in July. And if you go back 12 months ago into August of 2024, we had sold 101 lots that month. And 2 years ago in August of 2023, 187 lots sold that month in the entire city of Cape Coral. And I completely think that the main reason that there are fewer lots selling right now versus 2 years ago is just because the builders aren't really buying lots as much anymore, particularly the production builders, the big guys like Lennar and D.R. Horton, Adams Homes, LGI, those guys. They were building quite a few homes 2 years ago, and as a result, they had, they were buying maybe 30, 40, 50 lots a month in some cases when the building was at its peak. But it really doesn't make as much sense right now for these builders to be building new homes on speculation right now. The market forces are such that the resale values have gotten down underneath what these builders are largely able to sell these new construction homes for. So it doesn't make as much financial sense right now to buy a new construction home fully completed at the prices that they're able to offer them versus just buying a home that's maybe 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years old, just because you can get a lot better price for it. So it's kind of common sense that these builders would stop buying these lots when they're just not building as many homes on them right now. But if you look at the first 8 months, 2025, the first 8 months so far, we've sold 607 vacant residential lots. That's down quite a bit, about 31% fewer this year than the first 8 months of last year. First 8 months of last year was 880 lots transferred in those first 8 months. So we're down 31%. just in the overall number of lots selling this year versus last year. And again, the majority of these were in the Northeast and the Northwest, where still the majority of those vacant lots are located. Most of those are on well and septic systems. Still, as the city tries to push more of the utility infrastructure into those areas. So 34 of these sales were north of Pine Island Road, only 16 were south of Pine Island Road. But let's look at the values on these, because even though that demand has sharply gone down in the last 2 years, the pricing has remained remarkably flat. Take a look at this 2-year graph for the median price. Median price for those lots that sold last month, those 50 lots, was $44,250. That's down very slightly from $45,000 in July. But look at this. I mean, you go back 12 months ago to August of 2024, and the median price was $43,300. It's less 12 months ago than it is today. And same thing if you go back 2 years ago, it was $43,000 in 2023 in August. I don't think that means that prices have gone up. I just think that these lot sellers are just sitting on these lots, and they're not reducing prices. They're not trying to artificially create more demand for these lots. They're just sitting on their numbers. They don't have a lot of carrying costs, so they can leave these lots out there listed for, in many cases, a year, 2 years, or more. And it's not really hurting them. They're paying a few dollars in taxes every year on these things, and they're just going to sit on it until they get their dollar amount, apparently, because it's kind of counterintuitive. But with demand going down like that, we just haven't seen these prices go down quite a lot at all. It's been very, very flat the last 2 years. Let's break this down again. North of Pine Island Road, most of those lots are still on well and septic systems up there. They don't have central utilities, and they're less than half of the cost of the average lot that does have central utilities. So north of Pine Island Road, the median price for those sales was $40,000. South of Pine Island Road, where most of those lots do have central water and sewer, and most of those lots have those assessments already paid off on them, $97,500, so well over double the average price in south of Pine Island Road versus north of Pine Island Road. We did have 11 Gulf access lots sell last month. That's not included in these overall charts, but those 11 sales had a median price of $255,000. So saw a few Gulf access homes sell, but we really don't, in any given month, there's not very many, so it's kind of hard to take any meaningful price statistics from that. But let's look at the inventory. Inventory is a weird chart too. Take a look at this 2-year chart for the inventory. Again, these are anything that had an active status on the market for a residential off-water lot in any given month. And last month in August, 1,263 vacant lots were on the market. At some point, that's up very slightly from 1,253, which was July's number. You go back 12 months, August of 2024, 1,169 vacant lots on the market. That means we're up about 8% from where we were last year. But gosh, you go back 2 years ago, there was only 1,315 properties on the market. So we're down 4% from where we were 2 years ago in terms of the inventory. So the lot market's been kind of wonky. Obviously, it's pretty apparent that demand has been going down consistently for the last 2 years, but pricing has been flat, and the inventory has been overall pretty flat. If you want to mention Gulf access lots, there were 380 Gulf access lots on the market last month. So we're not really absorbing those Gulf access lots very fast at all. If you're talking, there's only 11 sales a month and there's 380 of them out there. We've got a tremendous amount of supply on the market for those Gulf access homes. But again, we're not really seeing the prices go down that much, just because these sellers appear to be content to just leave their properties on the market at a certain value, and they haven't been making the needed reductions to get them sold. And finally, some of them, it's taken a long time, but some of them are getting somewhat close to their price. But that takes care of vacant lots for the city of Cape Coral for last month. Let's jump over to advice for buyers, and then we'll finish up with advice for sellers. I'll go ahead and summarize everything, and then we'll be done for the month. All right, so if you're a buyer in the Cape Coral real estate market as it sits right here in September of 2025, what is my advice to you? What do you need to be paying attention to as we get into the later months of the year here? Well, it's been a buyer's market for a while now, at least probably 18, 24 months for sure. And prices have been coming down since they kind of peaked out in spring of 2022. So The one thing I will say is you've got a lot fewer choices on the market now than you did 6 months ago. So that inventory obviously clearly peaked in around February, March of this year, and depending on the category, inventory is down 20, 30, 35% just in the last 6 months. So that doesn't mean you need to panic and rush out and get your property right now. I think it's going to continue to be a buyer's market for at least a little while longer, maybe as much as another year. But interest rates are going to be coming down for folks that are buying with a mortgage. We expect interest rates to come down a little bit more as we get into the later months of the year and starting next year as well. So that's going to create a little more buying power for the buyers out there. That will obviously create a little bit more demand. And so we've got fewer properties on the market. Some of them will come back on as we get into January, February, but right now we've got fewer properties on the market, and demand will be on the upswing as those interest rates come back down. So I would encourage you to make a move sooner than later. You certainly don't need to panic and go out this very moment and pick up a property, but I think the end of this particular buyer's market cycle is on the horizon. Barring some unforeseen situation with the broader economy and barring some unforeseen situation where inventory skyrockets again as we get into January and February, I don't think that's going to happen. They will go up a little bit, but I don't think we're going to see the big spikes that we did here in 2025 in the first couple of months. So again, if you've been trying to time this market for the bottom, maybe you need to start looking at it. If you wait too long, you're going to kind of miss it and catch it on the upswing, which is not a terrible thing. I mean, the pricing in some categories, particularly like condos, is down about 25%, and that doesn't even take into consideration inflation. We've had 3 or 4 years of really high inflation right now, and if you talk about the last 3 years, maybe we've had an average of a 4% inflation rate every year, and probably the real inflation rate's probably higher than that. Real estate's always been a hedge against inflation, so if you want to stack on that 12% to what we see in the numbers in terms of the correction, now you're talking about a 40+ % correction depending on the category. So if you're waiting for these prices to get back down to where they were in 2019 before the pandemic, we've just had way too much inflation for that to happen. I can't see that happening unless we go into some massive recession, and then you're probably not going to be in a position to buy a property anyway. So there's still a lot of demand out there, still a lot of people that want to be here in Southwest Florida, and the purchasing power is going to get better and better as these interest rates come down. So my advice to you, I still, as I've mentioned on pretty much every market report this past year or so, I think the best strategy for you to do is to go out and find 2 or 3 properties that you really like, and then pit those sellers off of one another. So there's still a lot of inventory in spite of the 20 or 30% reduction in inventory that we've seen in the last 6 months. There's still a lot of inventory on the market. There's still a lot of sellers that need to sell. And if you can go in there and say, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm looking at 2 others along with yours, you put these sellers off of one another and, see who comes up with your best price and your best terms first, and that's the property you go with. So I think you can still negotiate reasonably well. I hear from people all the time that expect to come down here and get 20% off these list prices. It's just, aside from 1 or 2 situations here and there that are kind of outliers, that sort of thing is not happening. The average right now, list price to seller price ratio, is above 97.5%. So it's taken some of those sellers 2 or 3 or 4 reductions to get down to that price where they needed to be to finally sell it. But once they do sell it, it's doing so at an average of above 97.5%. So don't think you're going to come down here and get 20, 30% off these prices. It's not happening. That's an unrealistic expectation, and you're going to hurt yourself in the long run if you start to try to mess around with doing things like that. But if you are in the market for something, whether it's now or in the next year or so, get a hold of me, reach out to me, call, text, or email me. We'd love to hear about your individual situation, and I can kind of go into the specifics of the market in terms of the properties that you're actually looking at and kind of guide you in the best direction, because I still think there's still time left to have a really good shot of getting a great price on your piece of Southwest Florida real estate, and I would love to help you out with that. Just don't wait too long, because I think we're on the other side of this market cycle, and eventually things are going to turn back around and we'll be back into a seller's market before you know it. So that's my advice to sellers, buyers. you're in a good spot right now still, but just start looking at sooner than later, because things are going to start turning around as we get some of this inventory off the market and as buying demand increases. So it's my advice for buyers in September 2025 for the city of Cape Coral, Florida. All right, so if you're a seller in the Cape Coral real estate market as it sits right now in September of 2025, what is my advice to you? What do you need to be paying attention to and thinking about as we get into the remaining months of 2025? Well, I mean, it's still obviously very much a buyer's market. You can take a win in the fact that a lot of the inventory, which has been plaguing us all year, has come off of the market in the last 4 to 6 months. In some categories, 20 or 30 or plus percent have come off the market in the last 6 months. Now, we expect that to go back up a little bit as we get into January and February. It happens no matter what market we're currently in. It always kind of spikes up a little bit in January and February, but as long as everything maintains the way it has been for the last few months, I don't anticipate we're going to hit the highs in terms of the inventory that we hit earlier this year. I don't think we're going to get back to that level. So I think we're on the other side of the inventory issue that we've had here in Southwest Florida, and that's a very good sign for this real estate market. It means things are going to start turning around. It's still going to be a buyer's market for the foreseeable future, but buyers are going to have more purchasing power as the mortgage interest rates start to come down here in the next few months and the start of 2026. That's very good news for sellers as well. So I think the demand will be rising, and hopefully as we continue on this trajectory, inventory will continue to lower, and we'll turn back into a seller's market before too long. So I think the worst is behind us. We probably will continue to see a little bit of softening in pricing. I don't think it's going to be another 10% or something like that, but I think we'll have a few more points to go before we kind of bottom out and start to raise back up. But if you are a seller and your property's not been showing, if you have it on the market right now and it's not been showing, you're not getting any activity, maybe consider you either need to make the reductions that you need to make to get that activity going on it, or you need to just take it off the market. And I think that's what a lot of people are figuring out. They're not getting their numbers, and so they're willing to take those properties off the market. The sooner we can get all of that overpriced inventory off the market, the sooner this market will turn around. So if you're a seller that doesn't need to sell right now and you're not getting any activity, you're sitting on the market at a too high price, and you need to go ahead and take that off the market and wait for things to turn around. If you need to sell right now, get a hold of me. I would love to take a look at your specific property and give you some finer points of what I think we can do to get that thing sold. I'm still selling a good number of listings right now. I'll tell you, it's tough though. We've got to push through as many buyers as possible. In some cases, we got to put 20, 30, 40 buyers through a house before we're getting an offer. With all of that other inventory out there, these buyers just have attention deficit. They're getting taken in every direction. So by the time they see your property and 4 others that's hit the market, and then they go out and see those, they've forgotten about yours, even if yours has looked really, really good. So need to obviously make sure it's a foregone conclusion that your property needs to look tip top, especially on that drive up and the first 5 seconds of walking through the front door. That's most crucial. Because they're going to decide, that buyer's going to decide whether or not they have a positive or a negative view of your house within that first 5 seconds of walking through the front door. So it's got to look good and it's got to smell good. Maybe smell good is even more important than looking good. And then on top of that, you just need to have it priced right. So again, if you're not getting any activity, we are still selling properties, even though it's a slower time of year here in the late summer months. There are still buyers out there for even the slowest of categories like condos, but you just got to be priced right. You got to be priced right to attract those fewer buyers right now. So if you can afford to hang on, take that property off the market, and let's sit this one out for a while. That's my advice to you. I think you're going to get more in the long run. But if you need to sell right now, if you've got a situation where you need to get out, you got to cut and run. You got to get it. You got to get it priced right. You got to get it looking good, and I can certainly help you with that. So get a hold of me. I would love to hear about your specific property and kind of give you an idea of where I think we need to have it priced in order to sell it in this tough real estate market. And if you are thinking of wait until January or February, just know that there will be more properties out there on the market when you get to January and February. So there will be hopefully more buyer demand, but there will also be more inventory out there to kind of compete with for those buyers' attention. So if you are a seller right now, get a hold of me. Would love to hear from you. Call, text, or email me anytime, but that's my advice for sellers. It's a tough market right now, but I think we're on the other side of this cycle, and we need to just hold out for a little bit longer, and things will start to look a little bit better in this Cape Coral real estate market. All right, so let's wrap things up with kind of a summary of the overall market. If you didn't want to spend that hour plus watching this entire video going through all the granular details of individual categories, let me just kind of sum up the Cape Coral real estate market as it sits right now in September of 2025. We've made tremendous progress on the inventory front. We had extraordinarily high inventory levels earlier this year. They peaked out around February and March, and depending on the category, they've come down 25, 35%. Just in the last 6 or so months. So take that as a win for the overall Cape Coral real estate market. Now that inventory will tick back up as we get into the busier season in January and February. It always does, no matter what's going on in the market. The properties come on, there's more properties that come on the market in those months. But based on everything that I'm seeing right now, I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was this year in terms of the big spike that we saw from December to January and January to February, really. So I don't think we're going to hit fresh highs from what we hit earlier this year. That to me means that we're on the other side of this real estate market cycle. We've had a 2 or 3 years here now where it's been a buyer's market. Prices have been gradually declining. They needed to do that. We just got way too hot, way too heavy right there. We had exceptionally low inventory coming out of the pandemic, exceptionally high demand. It caused prices to jack up considerably. And we needed, the market to take care of that. We needed things to kind of cool down. The inventory obviously is going to fluctuate in the opposite direction. It's like a rubber band. If you pull it to the low side, it's going to snap back and go up. So this is natural market forces at work, cooling this market off a little bit. And luckily for us, it's been a gradual decline. And I think that's the sign of a healthy real estate market correcting to where it needs to be. Don't think we're going to go back to pricing pre-pandemic because simply we've gotten maybe as much as 12 or even 20% of actual inflation. The money's not worth what it was. So just like you don't expect to go to the grocery store and buy a loaf of bread now for the same price that you did in 2019, you're not going to buy a house in spite of the market conditions for the price that you bought it for back there. Barring some unforeseen situation like a huge recession or something where we go in, we have a ton of squeezed sellers that need to sell and no buyers in the market. But my guess is if you're a buyer in this Cape Coral real estate market right now, if we go into a massive recession like that or something, you're probably not going to be spending money on real estate, which is why those prices would go down like that. So I think we're in a really good spot right now. I think this is this reduction in inventory was even better than I anticipated it would be. I knew that we would kind of start to make some progress on it as we got further into the later months of 2025, but I didn't expect it to go down this much, this fast. And so hopefully we need to just continue that trend. Let's get those numbers back down under where they were at least 2 years ago, and we'll start to see this market turn around. So we're happy to see those interest rates start to come down here later this year and the beginning of next year. I think that will help buying demand. And then, the quicker that inventory comes down and the quicker that buying demand goes back up, the quicker this market cycle will turn around and we'll be back into a seller's market. So if you're a seller right now and you can afford to hold off for another 12 or so months, maybe do that. If you do need to sell right now, you still need to be pricing that property adequately and at a proper place. If you're not getting any activity and your property's on the market right now, even though it's a slower summer months, you're probably too overpriced and you need to get that thing priced. So whether you are a buyer or a seller, I would love to hear from you. Call, text, or email me anytime. Always need to hear about your specific situation so I can kind of guide you in the right direction, at least as it pertains to your individual situation. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you did, just do me a favor. All I ask in return, hit the like button for me. It just helps me out, helps the channel out. And also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Again, these are monthly reports. I do one of these every single month. A lot of time and effort go into this to give you these great details on what's going on with the Cape Coral real estate market. But these are in addition to the weekly videos I put out where we're just talking about really good, useful information for the folks that are interested in Southwest Florida, like taxes and insurance, or maybe some fun real estate that we're looking at. So hit that subscribe button. Make sure you can be around for these videos every single week. Beyond that, thank you. I appreciate your time. I know these are really longer videos, but I appreciate your time, and I'll see you around. We'll see you on the next video here in just a few days.
Like and subscribe. Just kidding.